Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Paddock Pass Podcast. We're talking ahead of the Australian Grand Prix as the MotoGP season hurtles into the final straight of 2024. My name is Adam Wheeler. I'm joined by Mr. David Emmett and Mr. Neil Morrison. So, Neil, it's the usual question lately. Where on earth in the world are you? What time frame? How's the energy level? And have you eaten your own weight yet in yet more different kind of cuisine?
Yes to all of the above, Ed, I believe is the correct response. I'm currently in Melbourne. I'm 9 hours ahead of you in Central Europe, I believe. So, yeah, you're recording this after lunch. I'm kind of edging towards bedtime. And have I eaten my weight in lots of goods? Yes, I have actually. Yes, unsurprisingly so. I've continued the trend of the last 2 weeks and been going absolutely helter-skelter. So you might see a little rotund Northern Irish gentleman whenever we meet again in Valencia in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, the pot belly will be back, I'm sure. I mean, have you moved like kind of from ramen onto barbecue then? I mean, I think you posted a message in the WhatsApp group the other day saying you were slightly shocked by the airport prices once you'd arrived to Australia for just like a coffee and a croissant.
It was a bit of a shock to the system. Yeah, Japan is reasonably affordable, I would say, for Europeans at the moment. The euro is doing quite well compared to the yen, so it was a bit of a shock to come to Australia and have to pay $15 for a coffee and a croissant. But it's been nice. Yeah, I came from Tokyo down to Sydney, spent 5 days in Sydney, which was great. First time I was ever there. And then, yeah, came down to Melbourne just before the GP starts. So, yeah, pretty good. Funny thing in Sydney, I'm petrified of heights. My cousin had told me, I met my cousin in Sydney. He lives in Melbourne. And we kind of planned to sort of go to this point on the harbour bridge where you can see out over the city. There was also an option to climb it, but I was like, nah, there's no way I could do that because of my head for heights. However, I didn't tell this to my cousin, and when we arrived there, he was like, oh, by the way, we're climbing the bridge. I've already booked tickets. So I had to do some breathing exercises to get through it, but I did get through it.
Don't look down.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same. Yeah, exactly. I'm terrified of heights as well. The funny thing is, I remember going to the top of the Empire State Building in New York, and then it was so high that I stopped being afraid of heights because it was like looking down out of an airplane. Do you know what I mean? There comes a point where you're so high up that you stop being afraid. But yeah, if you want to terrify me, then climbing bridges and stuff is not much fun.
Is it something to do with having a vivid imagination? I mean, that's probably the thing.
It's the lure of the void. It's just sitting there saying, go on, I dare you, go on.
A simple step away.
Yeah, it is. Yes, indeed. Yes, it's not at all pleasant. And apologies to anyone who is traumatized by this, because I can genuinely appreciate how that would traumatize people.
Dave, do you think listeners to the Paddock Pass podcast think, yeah, go on, as soon as you pipe up for one of your opinions? Because
yeah, definitely,
it's quite possible.
I suspect the line to give me that little extra push would be quite long and reach around several blocks.
Dave, you and I have we've all had a free weekend off, but we've been at home, and racing's been getting pretty kind of feverish. I mean, we've had a thrilling sort of showdown to the BSB 2024 Championship, which is been all over my timeline. There's those video clips from Brands Hatch, a fantastic circuit, kind of sort of where I grew up. Thanks to my dad taking me every other weekend. And I'll be honest, that's the only kind of slice of BSB I'll see during the year. But couple that to the Motocross of Nations, British Superbikes, World Superbikes having, I think, its closest ever finish, recently, thanks to that thriller of Estoril. And that season also coming to a close. People who listen to this podcast will know that Steve and Gordo have been providing some great content on the World Superbike podcast, so don't miss those as well. Coming up in Jerez, I think he's flying to, Steve, this week.
Yep.
But I mean, maybe this is a great time for MotoGP to go to Phillip Island and get rid of some of these accusations recently that the series is somewhat lagging in terms of equal thrills.
Yeah, I think, the comparison between Phillip Island and Brands is pretty good because they're both sort of like flowing old school circuits which flow around the natural sort of landscape sort of thing. So, and we know that Phillip Island always serves up just absolutely fantastic racing, with lots of chances to overtake and lots of chances to sort of, to overtake and to stay with riders. I think the other thing is what BSB does well is it provides a level playing field. It basically neutralizes bike advantage, and so does Phillip Island. Phillip Island does that for MotoGP. In the end, it comes down to who's the better rider.
One thing I didn't really, not appreciate's the right word, Neil, but you have all these comments, of course, as is the nature of social media, saying, BSB is the bollocks, and MotoGP is nothing, it's crap, it's been ruined by aero and whatever else, and we don't get good racing anymore in Grand Prix. It just seems all a bit excessive. I don't know, maybe it's just somewhat inaccurate now for motorsport, because I'm sure BSB have had some pretty turgid races as well. It's just a strange view.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand it to an extent. I mean, we've had a really interesting championship this year in MotoGP, but without really ever coming across a situation where the two top riders are properly going at it on track. Yeah, they've been on track together, and they're sort of like half a second, 1 second apart on numerous occasions that we can mention, but it hasn't really been an all-out, no holds barred brawl between both Bagnaia and Martin this year. It was pretty cool to see the two top guys in the British Championship go head to head in a pretty unhinged is not the right word, but just gloves off kind of manner. So I think some of the accusations are maybe, I wouldn't say are unfair, because we haven't really had that kind of race in the MotoGP that much recently. But two different series, obviously, and with the kind of the way MotoGP is, it's quite difficult to imagine a situation where you're having that kind of overtaking at every single corner.
Yeah, I think you can't really compare BSB and MotoGP. For a start, the tracks are very different. The British tracks are very small and narrow and tight, and based on completely different sort of spec, if you like, a completely different idea. Most MotoGP tracks are now sort of custom-built racetracks, which is a very different thing. They haven't developed organically. I think also there's a better comparison between BSB and Moto3, in that what you see in BSB is riders making a lot of mistakes for a lot of reasons, and that's what you see in Moto3 as well. What makes a great Moto3 race is because riders keep on making mistakes. The trouble with watching elite athletes is they are so good they don't make mistakes, and when they don't make mistakes, it means that there's no room to attempt anything, to try to force something. Even a small mistake can open the gap for another rider to try and sort of dive up the inside. And I think, without wishing to denigrate BSB, the riders are just not anywhere near the same level as MotoGP, obviously, because otherwise they'd be in MotoGP. You see that if you look at Bradley Ray, British, BSB champion, goes to World Superbikes and doesn't really make a dent, really, almost invisible. So I think that tells you a little bit about the level of BSB, but also it's just a completely different concept. I mean, we've got the showdown concept, which is built around entertainment. It's a fantastically entertaining series of racing. It does what it says on the tin. It's sold well. It's marketed well. It's well backed. It's well backed for a national championship. A lot of these people still have day jobs. But yeah, it's a completely different kettle of fish. I fully understand why people would prefer to watch BSB than MotoGP. That's up to them. I prefer MotoGP. Don't even know why. I suppose just because I'm watching it, really. But that's it.
Well, the prototype thing has a lot to do with it, especially for you, Dave, because you like getting down in pit lane and scouring, seeing what's new and what's kind of innovative, which is you're not going to get like in a stock-based series. I do wonder how BSB would be as well if there was, say, like a David Alonso or a Colin Vaya, some sort of young kid coming into GP racing that was really on fire. I wonder if I'm not saying that would detract from BSB or some of the fans, because I think there's a real hardcore audience. But then, it may look more favorably on MotoGP in terms of a British interest. I think also some of these views are better off in context, because whether we are talking, say, like the Motocross of Nations or World Superbike or BSB, these are all championship deciding affairs. That race of brands would be great even if it was round one. But then I think also what the context of what is on the line also makes it that more thrilling. And I think we had a little bit of that last year when we went to Qatar, or Jorge Martin and his Michelin tyre situation. And then, of course, Valencia for the last 2 years has been the championship finale. So, I think MotoGP could still deliver some thrills. And right now we're talking about a Grand Prix that's going to potentially be one of the best of the season, hopefully.
Phillip Island is bound to be.
Absolutely. There's not been a great deal of news on, just before we talk about the Australian circuit, there's not been a great deal of news, but there has been a little bit more of a development in the QJ Moto2 scandal, Dave. And it looks like it's kind of escalated a little bit. I hope you haven't been wearing any controversial headbands.
It hasn't
Where's
been
a controversial hat?
Yeah, very controversial. That's right. It's an insult to all other human beings. It looks like all of the QJ Motor branding has gone from the Gresini Motor 2 website, the Gresini Motor 2 website, in contrast, because the rest of them websites are actually really, really good. There's lots of good content on there. It looks good. The Moto 2 is just a blank page with the Moto 2 logo without any QJ Motor branding. Manu Gonzalez is on a flight to Melbourne. He posted on social media, so it looks like QJ Motor have just disappeared. Now, it's quite possible that they've just seized on this opportunity to pull out of the deal anyway. But again, as I said before, this is the risk when you get involved with Chinese motorcycle manufacturers. If they're paying the money, they're going to call the tune, and if you do something to upset them, then you're in trouble.
Doesn't it seem a bit excessive?
Yes, incredibly excessive, and perhaps it is just an excuse. Perhaps they were just looking for an excuse to leave.
Neil, just a final sort of. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I had to cut in front of you there, but they even admitted as much that it wasn't anything to do. Well, they said it wasn't something that they would level at Manu Gonzalez per se. They said it was just simply down to his lack of education on the matter. But they were still calling for heads to roll, and his head specifically. So, I think it would be very, very harsh, wouldn't it, for him? I mean, it was insensitive, all things considered, but he wasn't alone in doing that. And you would have to say losing his ride over the whole thing for the final 4 races after giving the team and QJ Motor their first success in Moto2 this year. I mean, you would think it would be just a bit on the excessive side. That's just a personal opinion.
It's this moment where I sort of call on your superior knowledge and kind of maybe highlight the lack of mine. But Manu Gonzalez signed for Intact next year, right? And I think Gresini Moto2 team is going to have Darren Binder, and who's the other rider for 2025?
Albert Rennes.
Right. Okay. So he's just re-upped. Is there a possibility that the team could struggle because of this? I mean, they're losing a significant title sponsor. It doesn't bode too well.
Yeah, it doesn't, and I think there are quite a few teams in the junior classes that are just about getting by, where things are not necessarily going brilliantly or flourishing. I think you have your staples in the Moto2 class, for instance, that are very well funded and continue to employ the kind of the top engineers and generally perform the best on the track. But you do hear some stories of some teams struggling to find sponsors, to find the budget to cover all of the outgoings and the costs for the year. And I know that Gresini are sort of tearing it up in one way in MotoGP, but the Moto2 effort, they're going to be searching for another title sponsor. You would have to assume. So I think it will be quite a big thing.
Speaking of rebadging, after we recorded the show last week, MotoGP made a press release and news that they're actually going to have like a new logo, a new look, a new kind of era for 2025. We know that the Liberty Media deal was on the verge of being rubber stamped. and the series is going to get. Well, apparently so. I mean, the last time I was doing an interview with Dan Rossamondo in his office, I mean, I think he had a bit of a stack of papers next to him, and he said, well, here's the authorizations from a number of countries, and he didn't seem to think there was any potential hiccups in the process, but it does seem like MotoGP is moving. We've had the announcement as well of Kelly Britton joining as to head up the marketing department, which has always been a bit of an odd entity at Dorna. It doesn't really fulfill the usual marketing role, so that's going to be another pivot as well. The new rebranding project, thanks to sort of my wife's work, I've had sort of some interesting kind of insights on it, and it's going to be shown off in the MotoGP Awards, which is taking place inside the Valencia circuit this year rather than any kind of downtown venue in the city. And it could be interesting, but I think more than just the fact that MotoGP is going to look different, there's also Dorna treating the sport in a different way. I mean, they are kind of hoisting it up more as an entertainment spectacle, an entertainment brand. I mean, how do we feel about that, guys? And do we think that's the right direction to entice new fans? I mean, I remember Dan Rossamondo saying to me, how do we reach 17-year-olds in New York City? How do we get to them? How do we also hook them? Because, they have the spectacle. As we know, MotoGP can look spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, it is felt to me for a while that MotoGP is sort of like bumping up to the limits of its current iteration, that it needs some kind of lift to bump it over up to sort of the next level, which should be possible, and which I know absolutely zero about branding and marketing and all the rest of it. Otherwise, I'd be considerably richer than I am. But no, I mean, look, I know nothing about it, but it's clear that we've got a good audience, a very strong audience, but there's so much more potential, and it needs something to lift it over that next obstacle. I have no idea in how far Liberty were involved. I think the sale to Liberty is part of a big. I think there's also like an internal drive inside Dorna who can also see like, okay, we are here, but we need to grow. We need to be a bigger spot. There's so much more potential. There are markets which we're not reaching, which we should be able to reach. So we'll see. But we saw this week that a Belgian member of the European Parliament has raised competition issues with the Competition Commission for within the EU. I think previously there have been the owner of the Formula E series has also raised questions about the monopoly position which Liberty would have if they have MotoGP and F1. So I think we're about to hear. I mean, I've been searching through the EU's competition cases database. It's all on the website. I haven't been able to find anything. So it hasn't. No one has lodged an objection. There hasn't been any official paperwork yet. So I think it's still to be finalised. But I don't think it's it isn't over until it's over. It isn't done until it's done.
Neil, you've been a dab hand at design. As anyone looking at our YouTube channel can testify. Just thoughts on MotoGP looking a bit different?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really have that strong an opinion on the matter. It's probably about time that they freshened up the logo. I think it's been in place since 1999, 2000. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting turn of events, and just from what I gather, there are some internal changes ongoing in Dorna, which are aimed at moving away from being a Spanish company based in Spain to an international company where English is the prominent tongue, and I think we've seen that with the hiring of Kelly Britton, for example. That coupled with Dan Rossamondo's hiring last year, those are two really important senior figures now that are in Dorna, and that don't come from Barcelona or from Catalonia or from Spain, which I think is significant. And it seems as though there are real concerted efforts to continue this direction to becoming a more international company. So yeah, I think it's kind of pointing towards the direction it needs to go in. And yeah, just interesting to hear what Dave was saying there about some of the objections from a Belgian MP. But yeah, I mean, there's not really, when you speak to people in the paddock, you don't get the impression that people are overly worried or concerned about the takeover not taking place.
Now, carry on talking, because the concept of MotoGP being an entertainment brand really hits a height this weekend, right? I mean, we're talking about probably the best track in the series, a remarkable Grand Prix, first sort of originated back in 1989, but I think it's probably the most ridiculous Grand Prix as well, just for the time of year. And having spent a small fortune going to cover it last year, and it's part of the reason why I'm doing it from home this time. I assume that the cold, the wind, potentially rain, is going to be another talking point amongst the teams and the riders once you're in the circuit tomorrow, or actually on Thursday morning.
I would assume so, yeah. I mean, I was caught in a minor flood yesterday in Sydney. It was a lovely kind of morning, early afternoon, and then heavens opened and suddenly there was a small river flowing down the street. So it kind of gave me a little snapshot into what things can be like here. We know that Phillip Island can be very temperamental at the best of times, although I think we're seeing at the moment a relatively settled forecast for Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully we should get a couple of dry days running when it really matters in the business part of the weekend. That is the fingers crossed. And yeah, as you say, Ed, I mean, this is arguably the most fun round of the season to kind of attend. It's the best track to go to. The last 2 years, it's offered up, I reckon, probably the best racing of the year. So yeah, fingers crossed that we can deliver again. Because we want to kind of switch the tone from the kind of negatives from Japan to another thriller, which will have us all on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, I think as I said before, what makes the difference at Phillip Island is the rider and not the bike. And so this is a place where we see riders battling each other, and that gives people more room to play, more space to actually, find performance and attack, defend, make passes, passes. Top speed is less of an issue. The weather, I was looking at the forecast, and it does look like Friday's going to be a bit of a washout, but then we have Saturday and Sunday, which looks like it's going to be cold but doable. However, and also very, very windy. But of course, the big question is what happens with the resurfacing. But I think we'll come to that a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to add that, Dave, that it is pretty important, I think, to mention the fact that the track has been resurfaced since the last time we, as MotoGP series, raced here. We saw that it played havoc, I guess, with World Superbikes early in the year, and that there had to be an enforced pit stop midway through the race because Pirelli were concerned that their tires couldn't do a full race distance. And we've obviously been in situations in the past in Phillip Island where that has been a thing in Grand Prix, most notably in 2013. So it will be interesting to see what demands the new track surface holds for Michelin, and obviously Pirelli have a bit of experience from Moto2 and Moto3 from World Superbikes. But if Dave's forecast is spot on, then that could play havoc with preparations for the race. I mean, if we're going into Saturday with no prior dry running, then it could be very spicy for understanding just whether the tires can deal with the very unique demands of this Phillip Island circuit. The most demanding track in terms of tires on the entire calendar.
Yeah, I mean, the demand is also about speed, and especially corner speed. And I did a quick comparison of the World Superbike lap times, the lap records. Obviously, in 2024, all of the lap records were broken, but they were basically the pole was 1.3 seconds faster, and the best race lap was 1.5 seconds faster. The Bulliger's pole time is 27.9, which I think is about 6 or 7 tenths off of the best MotoGP lap record. So, I mean, you've got to think that we're going to be in 26s, maybe even sort of nudging up against the 25s, which is an insane time around that track. But it's also going to really, really stress the rear tyre, especially the left side of the rear tyre. Michelin have bought an extra spec. I think also Pirelli have also bought an extra tyre. They've bought an extra rear, a hard rear, which is going to really complicate things, because if it's very cold, they're going to need to run a softer tyre, but then that's going to really overload the just overload the side of the tyre, and that is going to make it very complicated to manage. It's really going to be about managing the tyre until the end.
The track is all about flow, of course. Brembo sent their usual pre-Grand Prix information sheet, and they ranked the circuit 1 out of 5 for braking difficulty.
Exactly. You're not really bothered about braking. You just sort of back off a little.
Just use the rear brake into 4 and down into turn 10. And
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, there's basically like 2 braking spots. There's the Honda hairpin, and it's not. Is it still called the Honda hairpin? I can't remember. It might be called Jack
Miller's corner.
Yes, it's Miller's corner. Yeah, exactly. And then there's down into the glorious, which is an absolutely glorious corner, mostly for its approach. But apart from that, you're just not really, you're not bothered about it. You're mostly just, it's all about controlling the right hand.
There are 4 corners named after riders, right? I mean, you've got Gardner Straight, you've got Doohan, so it's 3 corners and a straight, because you've got Doohan, Stoner, and Miller. And then Gardner, right? Okay, so yeah, quite a few. If you get a corner at Phillip Island, I mean, that's got to be a little bit of a career checkbox, right?
Yeah, although it did Miller no favors, because I think it was 1 or 2 days after that corner was named
Alex
after him.
Marquez.
He then got bulleted by Alex Marquez and pretty much ruled out of that championship fight in 2022. So it did him no favors apparently in 2022.
Well, Neil, hold that thought for a moment, because I just want to ask you guys your favourite Phillip Island memory. But before we do that, a reminder to everybody on listening to the show that we are backed by KTM. So check out ktm.com for a whole host of different motorcycles, from touring, naked bikes, adventure, rally, of course, motocross. If you're in the market for a new bike, then have a look at ktm.com. Also, rental.com. If you're going to get a new street bike and you want a little upgrade in terms of accessories, then go to rental.com. They're not only specialists in off-road, but they have like a host of stuff as well for the road. World Superbike in the Kawasaki team there, of course, valued suppliers and partners with rental.com. Dave, when I say Phillip Island to you, apart from ludicrous sights like birds trying to waddle across the track during practice, is there any kind of memory that sticks out?
There's 2 which I'm going to steal. I presume I'm going to preempt one of you 2. I think the first one was it 2003 when we saw just how good Valentino Rossi was when he was given
the 10 seconds.
The 10-second penalty, and he then in half a race put 15 seconds into the rest of the field, which was just astonishing, and it really showed you what he was capable of when he really pushed it, and just how much margin he had. And also how good that bike was. I think the Honda RC211V is still, I think it is arguably the best MotoGP bike ever built in terms of its era. It was so much better than everything else. A modern MotoGP bike is obviously running rings about it, but still. And the other one, of course, is extremely relevant because it's 2013 when the last time it was. The track was resurfaced, and we saw Marc Marquez and Santi Hernandez try to interpret the rules as the pit stop rules as liberally as possible. Obviously, they decided on a pit stop race because during practice they found that Bridgestone found, who were the tyre supplier at the time, that their rears were blistering. They were starting to find blisters, and they were worried that they were concerned that the tyres wouldn't last the distance, and so they said, compulsory pit stop after 10 laps. And then I think because I can't remember the precise wording, but you could do like a maximum of 10 laps on the tyres. But then Mark and his team decided that they could read that as liberally as possible and come in a lap later, making it, like 10 full laps plus the in lap. And that wasn't what Bridgestone meant at all. And so they were red or they were black flags. They were disqualified, and that really took the championship all the way down to Valencia and really sort of tightened things up. But it was just seeing people's faces. I remember seeing people's faces when they were black flagged. When Mark was black flagged, seeing Santi's faces, you just sort of like to see him. And also, I think Christian Gabarini at the time was also the crew. He wasn't crew chief. He'd been sort of brought into, or he'd been sort of kept there to sort of oversee that side of the garage. And Gabarini sort of like looked away. You could see that he hadn't agreed with that plan, because the look on his face was sort of almost pure disgust. And to be fair, Mark came in and sort of was resigned to what had happened, accepted it, and got on with it, and still ended up champion.
I'll probably say the same thing every year, but for me, 1989, the first Grand Prix there, Wayne Gardner winning after a fantastic race where it was hard to really remember another Grand Prix where you had such a sensation of speed. The way that it was covered on TV and the whole excitement and the vibe around the event really came through the screen, and it was impactful, but then bettered. I didn't think a race like that could be bettered, but then 1990, of course, the drama went up where Gardner had a broken wrist and, a broken fairing. There was all sorts of stuff going off, both years off the track. I mean, I think Mick Doohan crashed in 89 and sort of ground his hand down to the bone. That might have been an injury that affected his form in 89. And then, of course, he had Eddie Lawson crashing, Randy Mamola, Kevin Schwantz, both years. It just seemed like there was a lot going on, not just fantastically close stuff on the track. So 89 and 90 for me is always going to take some beating, even if Alex Rins' peerless finals actually wasn't his final success for Suzuki. He won in Valencia, didn't he? But it was quite a magnificent last hurrah for the Japanese. And Neil, what about for you?
Yeah, good shots, Ad, on both counts, I would say. Mick, I think, ground on his little finger in 1989, and then because it kept on bleeding in his glove, proceeded to wear a surgeon's glove over that injury for the best part of the rest of the season. Just it doesn't matter. Just put a glove on it, or a little plastic glove on it, and that'll fix it up. I think Gardner didn't he? I mean, he broke his fairing bracket. I think having a big, nearly high side coming out of maybe the penultimate corner, and then you could literally see the fairing moving around as he was coming out of the last corner in 1990 when he won the race. I mean, that was probably his best ever ride. Pretty stunning stuff. It's one of those tracks where you could you could sit and talk about races all day. We
haven't even mentioned 2015 yet.
Oi, getting there. I was going to mention one of your countrymen, Dave, Hans Span, trying to smack one of the Italian riders off the track in 1990 whenever he was locked in a championship battle with Loris Capirossi and all the Italians. Capirossi was off leading at the front, and a host of Italians, including Fausto Grassini, ganged up on him and tried to slow him down.
He was robbed.
His cool. He was robbed, exactly. Still bitterness in the Netherlands over that one. Marco Melandri's rear slide coming out of the final corner in 2006.
Amazing.
Great moment. 2015, Iannone hitting the seagull, and the last lap and all the repercussions that followed for weeks and months and years. We're still bloody talking about the thing. The last couple of years have been great as well. You mentioned Rins' success in 22. Last year I thought was great with Zarco's sole MotoGP victory. Probably going to plump for 2001 though. Rossi sealing his first MotoGP /500cc title after a brilliant race-long fight. I think there was 8 or 9 riders the entire race. You had guys like Olivier Jacques up there, Noriyuki Haga, guys you hadn't really seen all the year, but when it got down to the business end of the race, I think it was Rossi, Biaggi, Capirossi and Barros right at the front. And Rossi just magnificently managed the kind of last lap to perfection past Biaggi going down into MG, and then just held them off on the run to the line. There was hundreds of a second in it. It was, I think it wasn't, was it the third last 500 Grand Prix of all time? One of the last ones, and it was such a fitting send off for the kind of the class as a whole before the four strokes came in 2002. And yeah, it was just absolutely peak Rossi. It sort of summed up that rivalry brilliantly, and yeah, what a fitting way to win the championship.
Neil, wasn't Phillip Island also the final stand in the Jacques Nakano duel in the 250s?
2000, yeah, exactly. That's a good shot as well. I mean, that was a championship that was decided by hundredths of a second again. Two teammates that had been fighting right the way through the year. And yeah, Jack, I think, drafted Nakano coming out of the final corner to win the race, the last race of the season, which was, yeah, another absolutely stunning moment. And I mean, you could look at the races in 99, in 2000, absolute classics as well in the 500 class. I think you had the closest ever Premier Class podium in 1999 between Okada, Crivier, and Kenny Roberts Jr. So yeah, I mean, you could just take your pick of one of 10, 12, 15 moments potentially. But I'm picking one, so yeah, I'll go with 2001.
Well, listen, Dave, you know, we're talking about teammates, but coming back to 2024, we have to talk about brand mates. And Phillip Island, let's be honest, is the start of a bevy of action in 3 weeks that could see the championship decided. So what are your feelings going into this weekend? I mean, is there a chance that we just see another Bagnaia masterclass, or Jorge Martino, I think, has the lap record at the moment? You know, is he going to be able to fire back? I mean, what's the first thing that sort of springs to mind?
I mean, last year, Martin was clearly fastest and had gotten away, but had gambled on the soft tyre and just ran out of tyre in the last, what was it, lap and a half? You know, he came very, very close to actually winning it and stamping his authority on it. And I think that Martin is coming here feeling much more comfortable. He loves the track. He's really good at the track. He's really fast at the track. I think he's better at the track than Bagnaia. I mean, I think, you know, like Bagnaia is fast around it, but I think that Martin is going to come here with the upper hand, and I think it's going to set the tone for the next 3 races. We've got I think these 3 races are going to be the most intense period in this season, precisely because of the pressure which is going to build. There's 10 points in it now. After every race, the importance of every race grows because, you know, the number of points on offer drops. You know, after every weekend, there's 37 points less on the table. So that increases the value of every single point your lead is there. And I think, I mean, my prediction right now is that I think that Jorge Martin is going to come away with having extended his lead. I think he's going to have a much more comfortable lead going into Buriram. He was outstanding in Buriram. I think he's going to carry that sort of confidence into Buriram, and that is going to put a lot of pressure on Bagnaia going into Sepang, where I think that maybe, you know, Bagnaia is better. So let's see. I think it's going to be a very interesting. I mean, look, I'm genuinely, despite the fact that it's on at an obscene time in the morning, genuinely looking forward to Phillip Island because it's such a magnificent circuit, but also it's going to set the scene perfectly for a really strong and hard and tight finish towards the end of the championship.
Neil,
do you know
just
how
before
you can
we get to
remedy
your
that end of the season, Dave? Sorry, Adam, but you know how you can remedy that obscene start time, Dave? You can come out to Phillip Island.
Yeah, no, that would involve me sitting on an aeroplane for a very, very long time, and that would be about as much fun as having someone jab sharp things into various parts that I wouldn't want that to happen to.
Well, that can happen if you've got a small economy class seat.
Exactly.
Neil, just before we get to your predictions, a reminder to people listening to the podcast that we're backed by Fly Racing in 2024. The company celebrated 25 years. If you're in the market for some off-road gear that's great in terms of value for money and also quality and fit, then look at flyracing.com. They have some fantastic off-road helmets as well. The Formula S is actually a helmet with a brain. It contains a sensor that if you have an accident or a crash and you're by yourself or you need assistance, then the helmet can actually alert proper emergency services. So have a look at the Formula S. It's first class. I use a Formula myself when I'm riding off road, and it's been too long now. But anyway, yeah, fly racing. Also, as I'm loath to say on the podcast every week, we do have the Alpinestars Paddock Pass Podcast Fantasy League, in which David Emmett has been riding high all year. So he's got 4 races left to try and reach the summit of the table. He's currently kicking our asses. Dave, I'm going to give you a 10 to 15 second window to extol your virtues as a predictor of MotoGP supremacy before we go on to Neil's hopeless attempts to try and inform our listeners who might be doing well in Phillip Island this weekend.
Well, it's quite easy. I had Ducati as a manufacturer, and at the moment I've got sort of both Bagnaia and Martin as my gold riders, and that's basically it. I think the smartest thing I did was getting Ducati as a manufacturer at the start of the season and not changing it.
I just, I want to go back to last year where you were mulling over Ralph Fernandez or Taka Nakagami for your select. Those were the glory days for me. But Neil, what are your feelings about the Grand Prix this weekend? And also, just as a little sidebar, are we going to see a Japanese, world champion crowned again? Do you reckon?
I don't think so at this weekend, Ad, because this has always been a pretty hopeless track for Igor in years gone by. Although saying that, on the Boscoscuro chassis is one area of weakness in years gone by, which is a lack of confidence at full lean angle going at high speed, which you have a lot. Phillip Island has kind of been remedied, and we've seen him a lot better, a lot more competitive at tracks where he struggled in years gone by. So I do think he'll be competitive, but I don't think I can see him winning the championship this weekend. And with regards to my MotoGP predictions, I think what Dave said was bang on. This has always been a great track for Jorge Martin. I think back to his first year in Moto2 at this venue in 2019, when that KTM chassis wasn't very competitive. He struggled pretty much right the way through the year, and it was only, I think, around Phillip Island time where we started to see just how good he was. In fact, he fought with Brad Binder right up until the end of that race. So I think Martin will certainly go into the weekend as the favourite. Marc Marquez, you can never rule him out. This is one of his great tracks, obviously an anti-clockwise layout as well. And yeah, Marc has just racked up some of his finest victories here in years gone by. 2015, I obviously have to say. 2019 as well, where he went with Vinales, even though Vinales I think was clearly faster than him right the way through the race, and then passed him going on to the final lap. So yeah, I think those two names stand out, but I'm also very intrigued to see just how good KTM can be. I mean, Brad Binder was right in the mix right the way through last year's race. He was second for the majority of it, got mugged with 2 laps to go and ended up finishing 4th just off the podium. But this has historically been a great track for him. And of course, Pedro Acosta. I mean, just what can Pedro do after his scintillating weekend in Japan, which just lacked that kind of final flourish, those final touches in the really decisive moments. Judging KTM strength here in previous years, hopefully Acosta can carry that into this weekend. My only concern is that races this year where tire conservation has been an issue, the Ducatis have just been so superior, light years ahead of the rest. And this is always a track about rear tire conservation. It's always about being very, very careful with the throttle. It's not a test of going flat chat from the very start until the end. It's about managing the situation. And when we've had those kind of races in the last couple of months, Ducati have just been so superior, clearly superior to the rest. So I fear that it might be a continuation of what we've seen in recent weeks, but I hope I'm wrong.
It sounds like you're predicting an Enea Bastianini win, Neil, which brings me on to my question for you two. Who's going to be the spoiler? Obviously, all eyes are going to be on Martin versus Bagnaia, but you just know that, Marc Marquez, Enea Bastianini, maybe Pedro Acosta, somebody is going to ruin things by getting in between them or maybe even ahead of them. So who is either Pecco or Jorge going to be most annoyed with after this weekend?
For me, I think, you've got to throw your number on Maverick. He's said, I think, in Motegi that he had to look at Austin and also Phillip Island as the two strong tracks for the current Aprilia package. So and like Neil mentioned, he's been strong here in the past. I don't think we saw the KTM extremely competitive in Motegi, a very different kind of track in terms of layout. So I can't see them being right up there. Having said that, Pedro Acosta was quick, in places like Cota and also Losail, kind of fast turning circuits. So you never really know. But I think, you're going to see, that Aprilia looking pretty strong. But how much you might want to bet your mortgage on it, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't see Aprilia with the kind of recent struggles that they've had. I just can't see them being up there. What are the chances of Mark being in the middle of Martin and Bagnaia right the way through the race, and then kind of beating up Pecco with about 2 laps to go, chasing down Martin on the final lap, passing him just before the checkered flag, and then Pecco comes out afterwards and said Mark wants Martin to win the championship.
So he's going to turn up. He's going to turn up to the press conference with a sheet of paper and all the times marked out and all the rest of it, and talk to Italian journalists about it.
Who's going to get on the podium going like this?
I think we can get good odds on that happening.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you have to say that Mark is going to be there. He's going to be there. He's going to be at the front, and it might actually suit both Martin and Bagnaia if Mark wins, as long as one of them is ahead of the other.
Indeed. Well, listen, that's pretty much the end of this week's show. Just a reminder, of course, that we have a whole other channel on Patreon with extra special content. If you sign up to be a Paddock Insider for just $10 a month, then you're going to get access to that, as well as our Paddock Note shows, which we do daily from Grand Prix circuits. Neil, you're going to be pretty much on your own again this weekend. We'll be dialing you up, of course, as early as we can to try and get you away from the track and to bring our listeners that exclusive content. In Thailand, I hope to be there, or I should be there. So we'll be able to double up on those. And then in Valencia, of course, we'll all be around the microphones again. I've actually just looking at my email, guys, and the FIM have just sent in a Grand Prix commission about Moto2 and Moto3 sporting regulations.
Just it's going to follow MotoGP format, in that it'll be free practice 1, free practice 2.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you want to join us on Patreon, then that's the place to be. If you want to grab extra Paddock Pass podcast content, guys, any final thoughts as we sign off this one going into Phillip Island? Neil, have you got the rain jacket ready and the beanie?
Yeah, I've got my hood, or my snood, sorry, and I'm already wearing it, and I'm not even on Phillip Island yet. Yeah, and I would just like to point out that I hate myself for getting this wrong. The 1999 Australian Grand Prix, it wasn't, Kenny Roberts wasn't anywhere near the front. It was actually Tadej Okada, Max Biaggi, and Regis Laconi who was third. So yeah, just kicking myself that I got that wrong. But I would like to add this correction in before we finish recording.
Hang your head in shame, Neil. Hang your head in shame. Imagine getting something which happened 25 years ago wrong.
Well, we knew it, Dave and I. We were just like, we just kind of,
yeah. We were just letting you talk, Neil. We just thought, whatever. Let him go on. Yeah, exactly.
Let me force myself by my own petard.
Exactly.
We were just like throwing you to the internet wolves, and we were going to, sit back and enjoy the abuse of your, inaccuracy. But Dave, best of luck this weekend with the extra early morning coffee.
Yes.
Are you going to be up at 2 a.m. to watch Moto3?
To be honest, I'm more likely to actually be awake at 2 a.m. anyway. So, because that's normally around the time that I start thinking I should really go to sleep. So there's a good chance that I'll actually see it.
Will there be like a drip just in next to your bed, Dave, with like a kind of coffee going straight into your veins?
Well, coffee doesn't keep me awake. This is the trouble. I mean, I'm a massive fan of coffee, but it doesn't really make any difference to my level of consciousness. It's, like just a base level of caffeine.
Well, thank you to everyone for remaining conscious through this podcast. We'll be back with our Thursday note show from Phillip Island, and then, of course, on Sunday for our Grand Prix wrap.